we're going to make something creepy. What are we going to make? Well, recently I read about a lady who contracted a brain parasite, which was pretty freaky. And that got my artistic juices just flowing from all orifices. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't we do a version of a brain worm? I did a concept of this on my ZBrush, on my 3D program, just so I have some reference to follow. And since I can't draw,
oh my!
Using a 3D software to kind of mock up ideas is kind of the way I go. And then I take that and then we put it into clay. Speaking of clay, we are going to be using a nice thing of a monster clay, gray. Used this last time on the anglerfish. Check it out. That was a lot of fun as well. And you'll need a flat surface, which is why I made this thing. Yeah, it's from Walmart. It's a serving table or a table of some kind. I just screwed in like a piece of wood so it props up. And we're just going to use this flat surface to sculpt the brain bug on. Enough talk. Let's get disgusting. So using the reference image, I'm actually trying to measure out how wide this brain bug's head's gonna be. And we're just gonna try and build up a nice cylindrical, spherical shape out of monster clay. Now I'm gonna be using a lot of clay because I'm not using any tinfoil to bulk up the piece. Except when it comes to the eyes, because those eyes are very, very big. And it saves on clay. Anything you can do to save on using clay, definitely do it. Build it up with paper, tinfoil, whatever you got, use it. Now everything you see here, we also do live over on Twitch where we stream. And so if you're interested in the sculpting process or have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments or coming over to our live streams. Link will be in the description below. So I rolled up some tinfoil balls and I rolled out some clay, and we're just gonna throw it over these, well, bumpy ass eyeballs. These are the bumpiest eyeballs ever. But we do end up throwing more clay over it to smooth it all out. But the bumpy texture kind of plays a nice role into developing the eyes. Especially when we add in little pieces to make them look very insect-like. Insect-like eyes? Right? Yeah. I'm not sure how insect eyes work, but we're building up kind of like these, I don't know if you would call them brow ridges. I don't think insects have brow ridges, but it's what we did, like protruding elements out of the face. Taking my knife to carve down the center line. Now it's important to make sure you got your center line, because then your brain can kind of match up each side if you're going for symmetrical. And I just find it a lot easier, or else you're gonna have one face, side of the face down, other one up, and it's gonna look just really weird. Unless that's what you're going for, then definitely do. I mean, there's certain practices you can follow to make your sculpt look great. It's pretty much whatever works best for you, I find, or I have found. So like I said, drawing down a center line, trying to build out the nose here, or I don't know what we call this. Kind of like the nose, mouth area, because we're going to have those pincers popping out at the bottom here. So we can call them like fleshy nostrils, because maybe this thing can smell its prey in the distance or something. Although it's got giant ass eyes, so it has no issues seeing it. It's very important when you're blocking out just to go with your big forms first. Try not to get lost in the small details. I wanted these eyes to have pretty good detail to them, so I build up just around the eyes here, which we're gonna have like these little veiny, fleshy things rolling kind of into the eyeballs themselves. Flesh forming over the eyeballs. It's kind of gross. Great way to work with monster clay is to heat up your tools or heat up the clay if it gets too cold, and it's just a lot more malleable. Rolling out some clay noodles for the bottom. There's not going to be too much detail on this like kind of neck part, because I want most of the detail to be in the face. That's where the eye and the focus is going to be. On the kind of like the pincers to to the face, to the eyeballs. I just wanted to add a little bit of more detail to this kind of neck area. I guess you'd call it a neck area. I'm not too sure, but it's like an insect. Insects have necks, right? Insects have necks? So I added some clay noodles to the top of the head here, which is going to be the brain. Now, I didn't like it at all, so we're going to come back to this after we do the eyes here, which is we just take little pieces of clay and place them on the eyes. Now, you don't have to make it symmetrical. I tried my best. Came out looking pretty good, right? I didn't know any other way to make brain bug or insect eyes, so we just place these little circles all around the eyes, and it took a really long time. And then we do the exact same thing to the other side. Warm up the eyes with a blowtorch, and then we go between each and little eyeball there and just kind of sculpt them in together to carve them out a little bit, make it look more like almost like a diamond shape. This took a really long time. I do not plan on sculpting another bug eye for a little while now. So here we're removing the old brain, and then we're going to put in a new brain by rolling up some noodles of clay. And I did have some reference of a real brain here. So we just took some noodles of clay, pretty thick, and we just kind of made like really weird, flowy shapes to try our best to resemble a brain. And when looking at brains aren't that symmetrical, but I did tend to make it a little symmetrical at this point. And I found this method a lot easier, and it looked so much better than what I was doing before, which was not using reference. And I always say this, make sure you use reference if you can, because it'll make things so much easier. So much easier. And then, we're just adding in the last bits to the brain, and honestly, I like this so much more than what I was going for last time, because it actually looks like a brain. Adding some small bits of clay to around the nose just to give it a little bit more texture. Trying to even things out on the left side of the nose as well. And already it's starting to look a lot better with these smaller details. I wanted the inside of the nose to look fleshy and gross, so we just rolled up some balls of clay and pushed them in there and made weird lines with our tool. And it worked, and it looked pretty good and gross. Almost like the reference. Now you can see the reference in the bottom left hand of the screen. I'm using that as reference, not trying to be 100% to it, since I already made it in 3D, right? I wanted to take certain aspects of it and, try my best to kind of change things around. Rolled up some tinfoil here, and we started just dabbing it onto the clay surface of the neck to kind of make a skin texture. And then we took a rake tool, scraped the clay to create these really cool line textures, almost like skin. If you look at your skin, there's like tiny lines on them. And this worked pretty good as well. As you can see, the texture is starting to build up. We took another rake tool, which is just like a bunch of like little metal wires, almost like a broom. We scrape it across the surface and it creates really interesting kind of like skin wrinkles. And then we kind of just use that to create these textures for the neck area. Use a blowtorch, smooth things down, and I'm going to use a sponge here with some lighter fluid, or naphtha. You can use that as well. That's going to break down the clay here and get rid of the fingerprints or any balls of clay that built up from raking it. And I do a combination of this. I'll hit the sculpture with the lighter fluid with a sponge or even like a brush, right? Let it dry. Then I use a blowtorch again to smooth it out. Go back to the sponge, hit it again, add in more detail. And you're just trying to work the clay around to try and make it look smooth, but also trying to add in detail that you might got rid of while doing this. But you want everything to look not so harsh, kind of believable as well, if that makes sense. It's a whole process when using the sponge, lighter fluid, and a paintbrush. Just gotta go with it. You see I'm kind of being aggressive, trying to wipe away those small little balls that build up. And here I'm adding back in some wrinkles that I got rid of with the sponge and the lighter fluid. Rolling up little balls of clay and making these little fleshy skin tags, little pores, pus pores. At the time, I believe I was going for like pustules. Then take a little ballpoint and just kind of like make little dots and balls on these boils. Boils, flesh tags, is whatever, honestly. Now we're going to speed it up here a little bit, adding in those weird skin things like I talked about earlier that kind of grow into the eyeballs here. And then trying to add in a little bit more texture, like wrinkles, skin wrinkly, gross textures. And the tools I'm using are actually dental tools, which work very well when you're sculpting with clay. Even better if you want to clean your own teeth. And then we do the exact same thing to the other side. You can see on the right side, it already looks way better. Adding in those little rolls of clay and the textures and the skin folds, you know, it really makes the face pop a little bit more. And honestly, I think it looks better than the 3D rendition that I did. Getting some lighter fluid and then using a brush, as you can see, just trying to smooth everything out so it kind of pops a bit more. Now it's time for the little pincer things. Now I was thinking of having these pincers like fleshy and just kind of hanging down. But then I thought about it, and I thought about District 9, those creatures. They kind of have like the little what do you call them, pincer things or whatever. So I decided to make my own pair of those, and you know what, this is what came out. Tried my best to make them look very pincery, add, you know, a little bit of fleshiness, make them kind of look hard shell as well, like almost like there's like a split between an organic and a hard surface. Trying my best to add the pincers on. The clay was really warm, so I had to prop up these pincers with my sculpting tools because it kept sagging down and falling off. We got them on there with a technique I use called the blowtorch method. You take the blowtorch and you just blowtorch the hell out of the clay. Just make sure you don't burn it. And then you just weld the pieces together like this. Blowtorch, and you just stick that sucker on. Try and hold it up with the tool. But once the clay cools, it's a lot easier to work with. Now here, I wanted to add a little bit more, so we made like these saliva strands. Like this is not a clean creature, right? This is going to be a gross, sticky, saliva-ish creature. Just strands of saliva. Try my best to make it look interesting. This bug is hungry. And here we go, the brain bug. The brain worm. Look at the beautiful textures. Really paid off. Glorious. And the brain looks so much better. The saliva, so gross. I am so happy with how this thing is looking and turned out. So happy with how it turned out. Brain worm, brain bug, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to imagine this thing working its way through my ear into my brain and just kind of like putting its pincers inside of it and then controlling me like a body snatcher or something. Ugh. I don't want to think about that, but I like the idea. Although this brain worm is a little bit bigger than what I read about. Just a tad bit bigger. Had a lot of fun working on this project. Learned a lot. In this channel, we're all about learning new techniques and honestly how to sculpt. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave a comment down below. Join the Discord or come check out my live stream if you've got any questions at all. Or if you want to see the full process, because we do everything live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss any new sculpting videos coming out. I got a really good one coming up pretty soon here. But anyways, I'll see you in the next spooky video.